Yo, what is up, YouTube? BK Brad Kellner. Today is Thursday, May 20th, 2021. We're back in front of the green screen, and we're talking Texas football today. Before we dive into the content, I want to remind y'all to please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate the love. Thank y'all for getting me to that milestone. It means the world. And feel free to comment below with anything you want me to talk about, any future video ideas. I created this channel for y'all. I do this for you. So whatever you want from me, please let me know, and I'll try to answer any questions you guys may have in the comment section as well. This video brought to you by laststandhats.com. There it is. You can see their logo. Use code BK10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase from laststandhats.com. You can see that discount code scrolling across the bottom of your screen as well. So if you forget, just wait 5 seconds. You'll see it again. All right, guys, I am currently at the Texas baseball game. I'm recording this video earlier in the day, but dropping it right at the conclusion of the show. I'm at the dish right now, rooting the Longhorns on to what will hopefully be a Big 12 title. The Longhorns need to sweep West Virginia, need some help from Kansas State, need K-State to take at least one from TCU for the Horns to have a chance to clinch at least a share of the Big 12 baseball crown. But out at the dish right now, hoping to get out there at some point this weekend. But that's besides the point. The point of this video is to talk Texas football. And if you can see by the title of this video, we're talking Sark and discussing whether or not Steve Sarkisian should get a free pass in year one. Now, the easy answer to that is no. You don't ever get a free pass when you're the head coach at Texas. It just doesn't happen. Every decision you make is analyzed through a microscope. Hell, it's analyzed through a telescope. Regardless of year one, year two, year three, whatever, you're going to be judged for everything that you do. So on its surface, the easy answer to that question is no. But guys, there may be a reason to not completely let Sark off the hook in 2021, but maybe to lower your expectations a little bit. Mel Kiper Jr. of ESPN released an article this morning titled 2022 NFL Draft Rankings, Top 25 Prospects, Best by Position in Mel Kiper's Big Board. So basically, he released his top 25 overall prospects for the 2022 NFL Draft, and he also went position by position and released top 10 lists of draftable players in next year's draft at each position. And when I say each position, I mean each position. He ranks long snappers, he ranks kickers and punters, he ranks H-backs / fullbacks. He goes through every single spot on the field and gives 10 players at each spot. Guys, there are no Texas Longhorns on this list. None in the top 25 overall, none in any of Mel Kiper's top 10 lists. Basically, that tells you this roster is bereft of upperclassmen talent. There's talent on this roster, no doubt about it. But in terms of upperclassmen talent, in terms of guys who will be draft eligible next year, you don't have a lot of proven commodities on this Texas football roster. And that shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. I mean, Texas is returning less production than any other team in the Big 12. I think they're 95th overall out of 127 teams in terms of returning production from last year to this year. This team loses 6 of its 7 captains, right? The only captain coming back is Derek Kerstetter, who's coming off a nasty ankle injury that he suffered in the K-State game, and he missed the entirety of the spring. But you lose Sam Ehlinger, you lose Sam Cosmi, you lose Joseph Osai, you lose your 2 starting safeties, you lose Taquan Graham. I mean, 5 drafted players right there, plus you miss out on Chris Brown, Brandon Eagles, Tariq Black, all of those guys off to the NFL. So, yeah, all of the upperclassmen talent that you had from last year is pretty much gone. And Mel Kiper is telling us that, guys, Texas does not have a lot of upperclassmen talent on its roster right now. We've talked about this on this channel before, trying to figure out which Longhorn is most likely, or at least has the best chance to be a first-round pick in the 2022 draft. And you really have to reach to think of anybody. I mean, for me, the answer to that question is DeMarvion Overshown. I think Overshown has the best chance of any upperclassman on this team to be a first-round pick next year. But if you look at mock drafts right now, his name's not showing up anywhere. He's got a lot of work to do to even enter the discussion to be a first-round pick. He had a very good year last year. He's got to have an even better year in 2021 to even be in that discussion to be a first-round pick next April. Outside of that, I don't know, guys. And I know Texas hasn't had a first-round pick since 2015, right? Malcolm Brown, the defensive tackle, the last first-round pick from Texas. But, going into seasons, there's always been a guy or maybe a couple of guys that you felt like had a good chance to be first-round picks. And I actually went back and looked at Mel Kiper's articles from previous years, right, where he ranks the top 10 at every position before the start of a college football season. And in each of the last 4 years, that's about as far back as the article went, or at least that I could find, there's at least one Texas Longhorn who appears. So last year, for the 2021 NFL Draft, Sam Cosmi, Joseph Osai, Caden Stearns, all of those guys showed up in Mel Kiper's top 10 position rankings. All of those guys were top 5, by the way. Sam Ehlinger, the number 10 quarterback in Mel Kiper's rankings. This is a pretty serious indictment of Tom Herman, by the way. This whole exercise just shows you the lack of development that's been going on at Texas for the last few years. In 2020, the 2020 NFL Draft, so the 2019 season leading up to that, Colin Johnson was Mel Kiper's number 1 wide receiver. And he ended up falling all the way to day 3. Brandon Jones was also on Mel Kiper's list of top 10 players at each position going into the season. Neither of those guys were first-round picks. 2019, Connor Williams was on the list. 2018, Malik Jefferson and Michael Dixon. Both of those guys were on Mel Kiper's rankings. So even though Texas didn't end up with any first-round picks in any of those years, going into each of those seasons, you felt like, yeah, there's a guy on the roster that if things go right and he develops the way he's supposed to develop, he's got a damn good chance to be a first-rounder. You don't have that with this Texas football team. Tom Herman never had that excuse. Steve Sarkisian, he's not going to use that as an excuse, but he kind of has that as an excuse. Now, there's still talent on this roster, don't get me wrong, and there are still some first-round potential players on campus right now, but those guys are all underclassmen. I mean, Bijan Robinson feels like he's got the chance to be a first-round pick 2 years away from the draft. Alfred Collins feels like he has the chance to be a first-round pick 2 years away from the draft. Maybe down the road, Hudson Card can be one of those guys. Maybe Troy O'Meary can be one of those guys, but you don't really have anybody that you feel good about as a potential first-rounder in the 2022 NFL Draft. And I went through this entire list, this entire article, once again, titled 2022 NFL Draft Rankings, Top 25 Prospects, Best by Position, and Mel Kiper's Big Board. Out of the top 25 overall players, only one of them is from the Big 12. And that's Spencer Rattler, who's Mel Kiper's top-ranked quarterback. He's number 3 overall. That's a serious indictment on the Big 12 Conference, which just became the first Power 5 conference in 15 years to not have a first-round pick. The Big East, which no longer exists as a football conference, was the last power conference to not have a first-rounder. That's bad history there for the Big 12. That was last year. Now, that's not going to happen again. Spencer Rattler's going to be a first-round pick. Hell, Oklahoma might have 2 or 3 first-rounders this year, and Iowa State has a guy or two that might creep into the back end of the first round, but still only one player in Mel Kiper's top 25 right now on his big board. For reference, the SEC has 12 of the top 25 players. Texas A&M has 3 of Mel Kiper's top 25 on his big board right now. But I went through position by position. Once again, Mel Kiper ranks 10 players at every position. There are no Longhorns anywhere, but I went around the Big 12 to see what I could find. Oklahoma has 9 players show up on Mel Kiper's position rankings. 6 on offense, 2 on defense, 1 on special teams. 9 players. Texas has none. Iowa State, most likely going to be picked to finish second in the Big 12 this year. They finished second last year. They've got 3 players in Mel Kiper's top 10 position rankings. Texas Tech has 2 players that find their way on these rankings. Now, it's a center and a punter. I'm not telling you Texas Tech has more talent than Texas does. I'm not telling you Texas Tech should beat Texas this year, but even they have a couple of names on this list. Oklahoma State, 2 players on this list. West Virginia, Letty Brown, the running back, he shows up on this list. Kansas has a player on this list. Kansas has a player on this list. Now, he's a fullback / H-back. He's Ben Miles, day 3 pick at best, will probably go undrafted. But even the Jayhawks have somebody on this list. Texas, nobody in Mel Kiper's top 10 at any position. So does that give Sark a free pass? No, it doesn't give him a free pass. Expectations here are always high, and they should be. Once again, there's still some talent on this roster. This is at worst, the third most talented roster in the Big 12. In terms of recruiting, this is either the first or second most talented roster in the conference. But because Iowa State has everybody back from a team that won a New Year's Six Bowl last year, I'll go ahead and put them ahead of Texas. I'll obviously put Oklahoma ahead of Texas as well. So, anything below a third place finish, probably not going to work for a lot of Texas fans. But I don't know if it's fair to expect a whole lot more than a third place finish, guys. I mean, Iowa State returns more production than any team in the Big 12. They return the fourth most production out of any team in college football. Oklahoma's loaded. If you look at a lot of power rankings across college football right now, a lot of people have Oklahoma number 1, ahead of Alabama, ahead of Clemson, ahead of Ohio State. Like, those two teams are going to be tough, and Texas gets neither of those two teams at home, right? So those games are going to be tough. Texas is going to be the underdog in those two games. But the question is, like, does Sark get a free pass for anything else? And should he get a free pass for anything else? This roster is bereft of upperclassmen talent. Once again, every decision you make as the head coach of Texas is analyzed through a microscope. And this is a results-oriented business. So, 6-6, 7-5, not going to cut it for a lot of Longhorn fans. But this roster has not been in the position that it's in right now in a long time. I'm telling you, despite the lack of first-round picks over the last 6 years, you've at least had guys that you thought had a good chance to be first-round picks going into the season. Texas doesn't have that right now. Most of the most talented players on this roster are underclassmen, and you lose a bunch of guys who are upperclassmen contributors a season ago. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to hit. Did I mention anything? What did I forget? By the way, Baylor, TCU, Kansas State, the other Big 12 teams, to not have any players show up on Mel Kiper's top 10 position rankings. But that is crazy, guys, to not see Texas at all on any of those lists. We've seen it pretty much every year for as long as I can remember, and you really have to grasp for straws to try to come up with a Longhorn who has the chance to be a first-round pick. And hell, when we're talking about like the top 10 at any position, that's not just the first round. That's like first 2 days of the NFL draft. I don't know if there's a guaranteed top 3 round pick on Texas right now. Hopefully somebody is. Hopefully at least 2 or 3 guys become top 3 round picks in next year's draft, because that means Sark is doing a good job developing some talent. And there are blue chip guys who are upperclassmen on campus. So you would like to think with the right coaching, those guys can be fine and those guys can turn into top 2-day NFL draft picks. But when we're talking about the top 10 at every position, you're talking about more than just the first round, and Texas doesn't have anybody on this list. So y'all let me know. Does that give Sark a little bit of a free pass in year 1? I was blown away by reading Mel Kiper's article earlier today. The fact that no Longhorns are on this list is absolutely crazy to me. Just not a lot of proven, experienced upperclassmen talent on this roster. And look, the Big 12 is not great. It's not super deep, but it's tough to win a conference championship without senior leadership and without proven, talented experience. Texas has had a tough time winning the league even when they had all of those things. It's going to be even tougher without those things this year. So maybe lower the expectations a little bit for Steve Sarkisian. Do you want to punch your computer screen just listening to me say that? I don't know. All right, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Fair to lower expectations? Fair to give Sark a little bit of a free pass this year because of what Mel Kiper had to say about this Texas roster? And y'all let me know if I'm missing anyone. Anybody who could be a first-round pick in the 2022 NFL draft for Texas. Look, if Casey Thompson wins the job and has a Mac Jones-esque year under Steve Sarkisian, he's draft eligible. He'll be a first-round pick. That'd be great. But can you predict that right now? No chance. Or maybe Christian Jones or one of the other offensive linemen, if they have a great year, can they enter the discussion? Maybe. Maybe one of your senior corners. I doubt it. Once again, we're grasping for straws. But y'all let me know in the comment section if there's anybody you think that I missed. And once again, please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet. And BK10 at checkout, laststandhats.com to get 10% off your purchase of any Last Stand hat, the best UT hat that you can find. All right, guys, appreciate the love. Be sure to listen to the Triple Option with RBKD every weekday from 3 to 7. And I'll be back with another video very soon. Thank y'all so much for watching. I'm talking in circles, so I'm leaving. Until next time, y'all stay safe. Y'all stay healthy.